Another document that we'll be looking at is Nfpa 1091, Standard for Traffic Incident Management Personnel Professional Qualifications. This is another generally accepted national standard that traffic incident management personnel may be held accountable to. Remember, you do not have to agree with a generally accepted standard or adopt a generally accepted standard to be held legally responsible for following a nationally accepted standard. Now, the objectives, you do not need to memorize these standards and manuals. You need to know they exist and what they cover so that you may use them as references and guides. When asked how or why, you know where to go for the answers. There are 5 chapters and 3 annexes to Nfpa 1091. We'll look at each one briefly and what they cover. In Chapter 1, notice the emphasis on minimum requirements. Nothing is intended to prevent the authority from having jurisdiction of imposing more stringent or restrictive requirements. Regardless of the organization that the candidate is a member of, this standard is to ensure that anyone assigned to traffic management and control has the necessary qualifications and training to carry out the assigned tasks and duties as efficiently and safely as possible. The standard also helps personnel from different agencies to work together safely and efficiently. General 1.3, the standard shall be performed according to applicable recognized procedures, best practices, and as defined and outlined by generally accepted standards and authorities. The job performance requirements are not required to be completed in any particular order. The authority having jurisdiction has the final say on a training program content and instructional priorities to meet the standards. Final say usually means that the local authority having jurisdiction accepts a training curriculum or course provided by a regional or a state-level training authority as long as the contents conform with the accepted standards. 1.3.5 1.3.6, 1.3.7, and 1.3.8 outline the performance evaluation responsibilities of the authority having jurisdiction and the refresher and competency training recommendations. You'll note that the standard here specifies annual demonstration of competency in addition to continuing education. 1.4 units, pretty much briefly, it just means that the U.S. systems of measurement and speeds and the metric equivalent will both be used in this standard. They're referred to as the USCS or the USC, which is the customary system of measurement, or the international system of units. But just remember, both the metric and the U.S. system will be used, so there is no confusion over speeds, distances, time, and such. Chapter 2 is reference publications, and it will refer to such standards as Nfpa 1001, the Firefighter Professional Qualifications, Nfpa 1500, Fire Department Occupational Safety and Health Program, NFP 1710, the standard for the organization and deployment of fire suppression operations, emergency medical operations, and special operations to the public by career fire departments. NFP 1720, the standard for the organization and deployment of fire suppression operations, emergency medical operations, and special operations to the public by volunteer fire departments. We'll also reference the applicable OSHA standards and any other appropriate documents as may be referenced in the standard. Definitions of commonly used words are not defined in the standard, but should a question come up, a specific dictionary is referenced, should a word need to be more accurately defined. In the case of this particular version, it's Merriam-Webster's Collegiate Dictionary, 11th edition, as the source for the ordinarily accepted meanings of words. Chapter 4, the general requirements. All policies, procedures, SOPs, and SOGs put in place by the authority having jurisdiction must comply with all applicable safety standards at the national, federal, state, provincial, and local levels. Entrance requirements 4.2. As with any function or task in the fire service, a member must be trained before being assigned to that task or duty. For the safety 4.3, the job performance requirement evaluations must be completed using the recognized procedures as presented in the accepted training courses. Candidates must meet the membership or employment requirements of the authority having jurisdiction. Job performance requirements outlined as evaluators should be acceptable to the authority having jurisdiction. There is no set order for completion of the job performance requirements, and the training classes accepted by the authority having jurisdiction should adequately prepare the candidate to meet the requirements of the job performance requirements. Section 4.5, maintenance and skills and knowledge. This section sets the standard for continuing education as specified by the authority having jurisdiction. Chapter 5 specifically defines the 9 skills that need to be completed and evaluated. These are the 9 basic skills that will be evaluated according to Nfpa 1091. Just as a reminder, the TIMA stands for Traffic Incident Management Area. TI is a traffic incident, and we will be looking at sample skill sheets and the necessary tasks for each skill to be evaluated in a separate presentation. 3 skill stations would be mandatory for all candidates. The remaining skills would be at random, and only 3 of the remaining 6 would be required for each candidate to complete. We'll go into this in more detail later on. The practical exam skill stations should not include all 9 skills for evaluation. The mandatory skill station should be manage non-involved persons, establish a traffic incident management area one-way taper, and establish a traffic incident management area lane +1 blocking. The remaining stations that would be randomly selected would be any 3 of the following 6. Establish a traffic incident management area linear blocking. Establish a traffic incident management area control intersection. Establishing a traffic incident management area for EMS personnel. Establish an advanced warning for traffic incident management area. Properly adapt the traffic incident management area in response to an identified hazard. Correctly position vehicles in a transportation incident management area, and monitor and adjust temporary traffic control measures at a traffic incident management area for problems or changing conditions. Annex A, explanatory material, explains such things as what constitutes a roadway, explains special hazards, defines warning signals, explains roadway geometrics, and what does listed equipment means, amongst other things. Annex B, explanation of the standard and concepts of job performance requirements, explains the standards and concepts of job performance requirements, explains the components of a job performance requirement, outlines tasks, tools, evaluation parameters, and performance outcomes, exactly what is expected of each of the 9 stations. Parameters and performance, how each task should be performed, expected evaluation outcomes, promotes consistency amongst testings and evaluation, and the necessary knowledge and skills needed before performing the task. Annex B, other uses, suggests other uses for the job performance requirements. Other uses would be member or employee evaluation to identify refresher training needs, establish hiring and membership criteria, employer or member development, which is a plan for employee or member growth, a succession plan, a vocation or avocation path, an education path, and a training path. Establish organizational policies, procedures, and goals. What do we need? Who do we need? And where do we need them? Annex C is informational references. Basically, the documents or portions that are listed in this annex are referenced within the informational sections and are not part of the requirements of this document unless listed in Chapter 2 for other reasons. Just more information sources. In summary, all classes, courses, drills, and responses will be conducted in compliance with Nfpa 1091 as the standard and guide. It is important to note that this standard recognizes that traffic control may not be uniformly taught to all responders to a roadway incident, may not be formally taught at all to some agencies and organizations. This standard may be used for any agency or organization responsible for duties at a roadway incident. In conclusion, are there any questions? If you have any questions, you can email those questions to the email address at the bottom of this presentation. It would be bjthetrafficguy@gmail.com. We will do our best to answer any questions either in future presentations or if necessary, we will answer them by email personally. Again, any questions, you can email bjthetrafficguy@gmail.com. It's right there at the bottom of your screen. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. Take care.